Grass is a beautiful colour. That's bulrush. Bulrushes in damp soil. I have all sorts. That's heather, Kaluna vulgaris. South Sea birches everywhere. Broken fern, which has arsenic and strychnine in it at various different times of its life, and that's why cattle can't eat it. It's got those two poisons or toxins in it. This here is the Bog of Allen, and it stretches for hundreds of hectares, thousands of hectares. So for hundreds of years people have been taking this peat from the bog. This is why it's flat and there's no vegetation on it. They take peat for fuel, and then I suppose in some cases it's been used as a horticultural growing medium. Peat based composts. There are no flowers on it at the moment, but in the summer there will be flowers which essentially have cotton on them, and that's where they make some cotton products from. Hello, Tony. Of the cotton, the bog cotton, as you can see on this kind of lovely russety coloured grass. But a couple of months ago the whole place was absolutely covered in cotton. It's a bit wet and sorry for itself now. In the summer it's goofy like a rabbit's tail. You can see how easily everything self-seeds into this. It's full of tiny birch seedlings that are coming from these trees, and that's because, as I said, it's a really easy growing medium for lots of different things. It's extremely acidic, and it leaches nutrients from it a lot very, very quickly. Nutrients won't stay in this soil because the like the way magnets repel each other, nutrition is repelled from this because they've got the same charge, and which means that the nutrients are repelled from the soil and washed out of it. But look at all the different things that grow here. Held in the soil at the moment is some nutrition. We've got little thistles like creepus, tiny little birch, lots of sorrel in tiny amounts, and I was hoping I'd find some sundew, which is a carnivorous or an insectivorous plant native to Ireland. I might still yet find it, but it is something that lives on flies and tiny little midges and gnats and things that would land on it because of it has an attractive smell or pheromone, and they stick to it then, and they are absorbed. They're the gooey, sticky substance breaks down the tissue of their body and kills them, the same way as a Venus flytrap does it. Not quite as dramatic, but really cool still. Is looking up at this tree thinking that that's an animal in the tree or a bird's nest, but it's actually called witch's broom, which is a fasciation. You might want to look up fasciation, but fasciation is something that is a reaction to damage which causes genetic damage to a tree, and it grows in a different way as a result. Haley think that's an animal, don't you, Haley? 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 This is Yarrow, Kittia. And meadowsweet, not in flower at the moment, but this is a plant that likes wet ground. This is the foliage of the yarrow. And ragwort. Some nice autumn colours, not the traditional russety colours. We have some of them there, but really pretty all the same. This turf is stacked so the wind can whistle through it and it dries out that way. It's quite wet now in places, but if there's some dry weather it will dry a lot quicker. When it's stacked like this, this is known as footing turf, and people have done this for hundreds of years. Machines now create the lengths of turf, and then people collect them in bits like bars of coal or bars of sections of turf, and they stack them up, and that's what's known as footing. And it's used as fuel. Not the most sustainable practice anymore on a bog, which is very biodiverse. I thought we might have a look at what's going on in our garden here in Kildare. The garden you saw a couple of months ago. It's quite different here in the tunnel. I've started here at the moment. First of all, Topsy the tortoise is hibernating now, and we've got straw packed underneath her and all around her, and she'll stay there now till next March. You might remember in one of the videos we were drying the onions that we grew, and they're good and dry now, the stalks, and at this point now where all of the green has died back and gone back down into the bulb or the onion itself, they're ready for storing now, so they're totally dried out. They needed a little bit of help this year, and I used this, it's a heater, but I use it just on the blower but no heat, and that just helped to dry the air a little bit. The grapes, we've been using quite a few of them. Helen uses them for smoothies, and we pick them off and just essentially eat them like a corn on the cob too. But some of them are starting to go rotten now, and I might make some juice or some wine with them. Red onions are a lot smaller than the white or yellow onions that we had. And then a lot of things have been pulled out, the tomatoes and the cucumbers that we had. So we've got salads like winter porcelain and some spinach and a few other things I can't really remember. That's stuff that Helen has been doing. These were cut back really hard. This is the spinach, and they start to sprout again and do really well over the winter, and they taste nice too. Some of the potatoes we've got stacks and stacks more in the ground that we haven't gotten a chance to lift up. Maybe we'll go around and have a look and see what is looking good outside at the moment with autumn colour and bark, and show you a few trees, a few shrubs. And I've got one job I need to do. I thought I might film that too. So this is what the kitchen garden looks like at the moment. Still lots going on. The leeks are a bit small this year. They didn't get quite so big, but they'll still be fine. And these are beetroot. The Verbena bonariensis self-seeds everywhere, and we keep it because it looks pretty. The place is quite messy at the moment because the leaves have been falling and we haven't spent a lot of time in here. But still a lot going on and a lot of interest. And some of the colour on the blackcurrants and red currant bushes is kind of cool. I love this black grass. This is Ophiopogon nigrescens. Ophiopogon nigrescens, and nigrescens means black in Latin. So nigra or nigrescens. You'll see here we've been putting down some new bark chips. I got a truckload of bark chips delivered here from a friend who's a tree surgeon. He was working about a half an hour away from here, and interestingly he said that it would cost him over €200 to dispose of the wood chips, even though it's a resource at one of the local places to him, one of the local green waste places. So it was worth his while bringing it to us, and we took it for free. This area here had wood chips on it maybe last year, and the great thing about wood chips compared to gravel or dust or paving is when you apply the wood chips to the ground, they break down, and if you rake the top layer off, you're left with totally usable compost that you can shovel sideways and onto the raised beds. Kind of thinking of changing this around a bit now. I want to make bigger beds and less paths, and that's what we're talking about at the moment. But as we walk through here, what's looking good in the kitchen garden, these are for cut flowers and also for the bees, but the dahlias and the cosmos and the Peruvian lilies all look great at this time of year, and all of these will keep going till I suppose the first heavy frost that we get overnight. The strawberries are totally finished. These are I think they're probably Cambridge favourite, ones that we've grown for a few years. Different to the ones we have in Park House, and different to the ones we have in the tunnel, which are a perpetual strawberry. And that is Dumbledore and Seraphina, his new girlfriend, making lots of noise. They make a fuss when I go near them. So this is a really cool bonus and side effect of growing blueberries, is that they have a fantastic shh, I'm trying to make a film here. They have a beautiful autumn colour, really lovely shades. So nice ornamental plant if you have acidic soil. What's the matter? What's going on? We've been digging up potatoes from this bed here. These were blight resistant potatoes, but the top of the plants got blight, and they've died down now, but they actually, most of the tubers are okay. Some of them have a little bit of a rot in them, and some of them have been eaten by slugs and snails and bugs. It's probably way past the time for lifting them, but we've just been so busy with other things, with the house renovations and things like that, that it hasn't been possible to get them all up yet. And sometimes they store really well in the ground, so we'll just have to wait and see when I get around to that. So this is looking at the kitchen garden from the other way. Parsnips have been brilliant. We've gotten huge parsnips, and they're a funny plant that some years they just won't germinate, and then other years they produce giant parsnips, huge parsnips. And we've got things like purple sprouting broccoli and things like that, and the kale is still for picking as well, and the sweet pea are still in flower, but they've created a big mess at this stage. When we got him, we didn't know whether he would be a she or a him, hence the name Shim. This is Mia. She starred in one of the other videos as well. She loves to lie on the hay for the donkeys and the horses and the goats. I'm going to show you a couple of interesting trees. So I mentioned in the video about autumn a few weeks ago that there were only 3 deciduous conifers that I knew of, and I kind of knew I was making a bit of a guess there. This is probably not a conifer, but a gymnosperm, which conifers are, and it's the only broad-leafed gymnosperm in the world, and it's known as the maidenhair or ginkgo. And you've probably heard, any people who are interested in herbal medicine, that ginkgo is a herbal treatment. But it's called the maidenhair tree, and it has very unusual, just try and focus this, very unusual looking leaves. So it is the 4th, it's the 4th deciduous conifer, and this will be interesting over the next couple of weeks. It actually has bright yellow leaves when the weather gets cold enough and the chlorophyll starts to depart from the leaves. This is Acer Davidii, and it's a maple, obviously, being Acer. Nothing particularly interesting about the leaf now at the moment, but again it gets quite nice autumn colour. The autumn is being stretched out because it's kind of been mild and wet. Dry, cold autumns produce the lovely, beautiful autumn colour that we sometimes see. But it's a bit wet here and it's still quite mild. But one of the very interesting things about this is it's known as a snake bark maple. And all of the snake bark maples have this really cool bark, snake-like bark. And I grew this one from seed. I collected from a library in Ballyrowan, which is in Rathfarnham. And it's really cool. And it's basically a fairly small tree that, as far as trees go in the garden, it's a good tree for a smallish garden. But you have to remember that trees are big things, so if you're expecting small, it's in the context comparisons to other trees. This is the bark of the Tibetan cherry, and some people call them polished barked trees, and I'm going to try and show you why. You can see how bright the new bark is as you look at it. It's really cool. So if you really wanted to get this tree looking as polished as possible, an ideal thing to do would be get out a pressure hose and wash the bark at close quarters with the pressure hose, and that will strip off in large amounts this really cool paper or bark, I suppose you could call it, and it will be stripped off and you'll have everywhere will look as clean and polished as this. This is, it's not a tree, it's known as a tree fern from New Zealand, Dicksonia antarctica, and it's a tree on a stem. And I'll be coming back to this one in a minute because I want to move it. I'm going to move it this way and this way in towards the bed, so it's a little bit out of the way of the pathway going through here. And here's another Dicksonia over here, a bigger one. So it's a New Zealand tree fern, and this one here is at the back of the pond. It likes moisture, and the pond, when it rains, it overflows out this way and into this bed of plants that like the wet. Again, this is not a tree, but it's really cool. It's been grown as a multi-stem tree. This one is Elaeagnus ibingii, and it's quite a nice evergreen large shrub or tree, I suppose. And the backs of the leaves are this silvery colour, so when the wind blows it has this really cool look. And then in the spring, these little shoots here of new leaves will come out very silver with really chocolatey, brighter than they are now, stems, chocolatey stems. And the leaves can be browny colour as well as silver, and then they mature to this kind of slightly less interesting colour, but nice and glossy all the same. Some of the trees have lost their leaves now, and this one was really cool a few weeks ago, a couple of weeks ago. So I put a picture on screen to show you what it looked like. This one is another Japanese maple, and it's Acer aconitifolium, and the leaves were spectacular a few weeks ago. I really love this tree. And one of the big reasons I like it is because I never bought it or planted it. It came here as a seedling. I'm not quite sure where exactly from, because there are no other birch trees, or at least then there were no other birch trees in the vicinity, mature ones. Apart from maybe down the bottom of the fields and in the Bog of Allen as well, so maybe it came across on a bird's feathers or something, on the feet of something. But it's a birch tree, Betula. I think it's Betula pendula or Betula pubescens. I think there's some sort of cross species among those. The beauty of them when you grow from seed is there's huge differences in the bark and the habit of the tree. And the colours of this are really amazing, because there's genetic variation when things are grown from seed and cross-pollinated. But look at the colour of this, it's really spectacular. And it seeded itself somewhere over here, and I moved it to here. And it's a biggish tree, medium-sized tree. I mean, people say that a birch tree is a small tree in a garden. This one's only here about 10 years, and you can see it's got quite big. But even if it is larger than a small tree, the leaves are small and you can see that it doesn't create a dense head on it. The autumn colour is quite nice on it as well, and it will allow light through, so you get a dappled shade underneath for all of these plants that like shade but not dense shade. This is our, what we call the secret garden, and in summer it is a bit more secret than it is now. The reason it's called the secret garden is because it originally had a hedge just here where my finger is, but we took that out to allow more interesting plants to grow.